external factors and their influence on the treatment. As the eco-friendly technology of physical water treatments operates within the laws of nature, we have to consider some of these laws. It is important for the Vulcan water treatment to create as many of the monocrystals as possible. However, the monocrystal structure does not last forever. From the moment of its creation, it has only limited life expectancy. Time, distance, and temperature determine how long the crystal will last, and this determines how long the effect will last. The time factor. The effect of the Vulcan treatment lasts a minimum time span of 2 days in cold water and up to 7 days in warm water. Why does the temperature have an effect on how long the Vulcan effect is active? When monocrystals are created by the impulse variation, it is important that they grow as long as possible before they start their way through the piping system. The bigger the crystals, the longer it takes until they fall apart again. When things grow in nature, as plants or bacteria, they grow faster when it is hot. It is the same with the monocrystals. In warm water, the crystals grow faster and bigger than in cold water. This results in a much higher number of crystals, together with a larger size of the individual crystals. The larger crystals then survive up to 7 days. Cold water does not promote the growing of the crystals so much. Therefore, crystals made in colder water are a bit smaller. When they are smaller, they also fall apart faster. In the cold water setting, the effect lasts up to 2 days. The distance factor. We know that the monocrystals do not last forever. The further the crystals travel through the pipe, the smaller they become. When they begin their journey through the piping system, they fall apart during that time. Our experience shows that the Vulcan effect will start to diminish after distance approximately of 2 kilometers in the pipe. However, long distances of 2 kilometers or more are rarely reached within buildings. Furthermore, with a favorable pipe system setup, the effect often lasts longer. The combination of several factors and its influence on the treatment. We will now look at temperature, pressure, and the type of heating. First, we look at the temperature and its effect on the treatment. The water temperature itself is one factor that has some influence. We have learned that warm water has a positive effect on the growth of the monocrystal, and therefore even supports the treatment. Extreme heat, such as a heating element's surface temperature of above 95 degrees Celsius, 203 Fahrenheit respectively, may also influence the treatment's outcome. In such high temperatures, the scale literally bakes into the surface, almost as in an oven. Here the heat sometimes wins. What do we have to consider for the Vulcan treatment then? From experience, we know that in about 50% of the cases, the extreme heat limits the treatment. In the other 50%, Vulcan functions just fine. How do we use this information now? It's very easy. If our customer has a situation where the heating element is hotter than 95 degrees Celsius, we advise him that the treatment outcome can be either strong or very little. We advise to run a test with the customer. With a test run in a situation with extreme heat, there could be 2 outcomes. If the outcome is strong, your customer will be happy because he was in the 50% part where it works and where the problem can be solved. If the treatment does not kick in fully, then the customer is fine also, because we have told him that that can be the case. Very often, he will use Vulcan in some part of his building, but will then advise him what to do with the extra hot area. Here is an example. In a hotel, the whole building is protected with Vulcan. Vulcan is installed in the main water entry to the hotel. The kitchen of the hotel benefits also from the treatment. The cooks see a good improvement in their daily work. However, there is a steam oven in the hotel kitchen. This steam oven runs with very high temperatures as there is steam needed. In this case, we are looking a bit closer. We know that there is a temperature of over 100 degrees Celsius in the heating elements of the oven. What does this mean for the Vulcan treatment? 2 scenarios are possible now. The extreme heat of the heating element causes a small treatment success only. Vulcan is not solving the problem sufficiently. In this case, Vulcan is treating the whole house but not the oven. Simply use Vulcan everywhere, but for just the water going into the oven, there should be an extra solution. This could be one of the scenarios. The second scenario is the Vulcan treatment is working strong enough and the results in the steam oven are just fine. In this case, no extra step needs to be taken. What is important is to identify the extreme hot spots and to take a good look at it together with the client. Roughly, we know that in about half of the cases with extreme heat, the Vulcan treatment will show great results. For the other cases, the Vulcan distributors are good consultants to advise for the best solution mix. What determines if Vulcan works well or not in extreme heats? It is a combination of factors that have an influence, and it is not always possible to know the exact outcome in advance. Temperature is one influence factor to consider. A second factor to keep an eye on is high pressure, for example in boilers or steamers. What also comes into the equation is the way of how the heating is provided. For example, it may be used with gas, electrical, heating exchangers, burners, etc. So please consider that in such a situation it may be best to test and see. When the customer understands these variables, we help to educate him and the expectations are set correctly. The water quality factor. The individual composition of water and especially very high concentrations of certain substances can influence the Vulcan treatment. High concentrations of iron. Iron is naturally found in water. Very high iron content is typically found in water wells, which then often causes problems with rust. If the iron content reaches more than 1 mg per liter, that is 1 ppm, it may have a negative effect on the treatment. We advise to treat problems with very high iron content in the water with a de-ironing filter. This will ensure that the Vulcan treatment can reach its full potential. High concentration of manganese. Manganese is naturally found in water. Very high manganese content is typically found in water wells, which then often causes problems with rust. If the manganese content reaches more than 0.1 mg per liter, that is equally to 0.1 ppm, it may have a negative effect on the treatment. We advise to treat any problems with very high manganese content with a demanganization filter. This will ensure that the Vulcan treatment can reach its full potential. High concentration of salts. Seawater. Very salty water, for example in seawater, usually does not lead to scale problems. In general, ocean water does not affect the performance of Vulcan, and you will see good results. The Vulcan treatment in cooling towers. However, high concentration of salt is a typical cooling tower issue. As cooling towers are half-open circuits, with water constantly evaporating, the substances in the water constantly concentrate. Within a short time, the water hardness and the salt level may dramatically increase. Here it is recommended to use Vulcan with water that has a conductivity of 5000 microsiemens or more. A typical question we get is, up to which water hardness can Vulcan be effective? The problem with scale deposits starts when the water contains a large amount of calcium. The Vulcan water treatment can be successfully applied to water with high and very high water hardness. Vulcan has treated cases with water hardness of 1000 ppm and more. Typical extreme high hardness degrees occur in cooling towers. When the conductivity is extremely high, Vulcan will show great results. Basically, the harder the water, the more obvious the results.